It's a very ancient tradition in the Chaldean Catholic Eastern Rite, where our priests can get married and become priests. I was living in the world, doing a lot of crazy things. Some people, especially young people, ask me, Mahir, how do you have this passion towards God? What is your secret? And I said, there's no secret. I go, it's purely letting God work through you. One thing as a priest that we should show others is that we truly love the priesthood, that we are truly happy, we are joyful. Hi, my name is Father Mahir Murad. I was born in Iraq into the Iraq and Iran war. I don't remember much from Iraq, so I left when I was around 7 years old. It wasn't really easy living in a country like Australia. The language, the culture, the traditions. And then when we came in the 90s, there wasn't many Middle Easterns. So it was a bit different for the Australians to see a lot of Middle Easterns coming into this country, and they didn't understand how to talk to us, how do they treat us, because we were different, from a different culture and different tradition. But in time, we started to come into the culture, into the tradition, and we started to grow up in this country, me and my siblings in school. Around 40,000 people are here currently from Iraq. At that time, there's only a handful of people from Iraq, so it was pretty hard to understand the culture and the traditions. Slowly, when our people started to come in, we started to connect, we started to understand each other. So we established this church in Campbellfield, and the whole Campbellfield was full of Christians from Iraq. So we bought all the houses, we came all together, and this is the idea we had in Iraq, and we brought that along with us to Australia. Living in a country like Australia, it really challenges you about your faith. You know, what does that mean to be a Christian, especially a Catholic? Most of the time we don't understand it. So I didn't really care about my faith. I would come to church because my parents would force me to come to church. I started hanging around with a different crowd, those who didn't really care about the faith also. And for a good long time, I was living in the world. I wasn't of the world, I was in the world, doing a lot of crazy things. I was going out with my friends, I had a cool car, I was going out with girls, I was having a lot of fun. We used to go out partying, clubbing, fighting with people. At one stage I had 2 girlfriends, and that night I had a dream. I was walking along the shore on the beach with my friend, a long-time friend, and I saw a little image in the sky. And so we're walking towards it, and the closer we got to the image, we're starting to understand it's a human figure. We ran towards it so fast, and we came right next to it, and it was so close to us, and within like 10-15 meters away above us. And I said to my friend, and I go, look, I go, it's Jesus. And he goes, where? I go, look, he's right there. And he goes, where? I go, look, he's right on top of us. He goes, I can't see him. And my eyes were fixed on him, and it was Jesus himself. And I looked at him and I said, Jesus, what do you want from me? And he starts to open his mouth and starts to talk. And I couldn't hear him because we were in the shores of the beach, and you can imagine the waves and the wind coming towards us. And he starts to speak again. And I said, Jesus, what are you trying to say to me? I can't hear you. And he starts to speak again. And I said, Lord, what are you trying to say? I can't hear what you're saying to me. And then he disappeared. I woke up in that morning, the next day, and mind you, this is when I was living in my life of sin, And I can confidently say that was God Himself who came visited me, and my whole life dramatically changed. And I went and saw a priest, and I told him my dream. He said, Mahir, he goes, you're so loud in the world that you couldn't even hear Jesus talking to you. But Jesus is calling you. And that was it. I wanted to love my Lord so much. I was so thirsty for God. I started to pick up the scriptures. I started to read. I started to learn the church fathers. I started to attend my church. I started to attend youth group because I was so hungry for God. And I have no doubt in my heart that truly it was God who changed my life in that night. So obviously, when I woke up, I still had those two girlfriends. So I had to find a way to break up with them. I apologized. What I did to them was wrong. I told them my profound encounter with the Lord, and what I did, I handed them a scripture, a Bible. And then I got into theology and philosophy. I got to know my faith. I got to know my community, the young people. And then I was trying to discern whether God is calling me to the priesthood. I knew that when God appeared to me, I knew that He had a message for me and He had a journey for me. I had no doubt in my life, and I knew deep down in my heart, He wasn't only calling me just to practice my faith, but He was calling me for a bigger goal in life. And then I realized that God is calling me into marriage first. So obviously as Chaldeans, we allowed to marry and then become priests. It's a very ancient tradition in the Chaldean Catholic Eastern Rite where our priests can get married and become priests. And then I found my wife, who's from Iraq also, and then we got married in 2011. And in 2012, my wife fell pregnant. And we were so happy, we were so joyful. We found out it's a boy, and we went to the shops, we found out like a little small suit for the boy. And then we got back to the hospital, and they said, listen, there's a problem with the baby inside your wife's womb. The baby's heart is flipped upside down. So the front of the heart is facing backwards, and the back of the heart is facing forward. He goes, he doesn't have the spleen doesn't exist. The lungs are damaged. He goes, the arteries of the heart is all over the place. They said, listen, the best thing for you guys is just to abort the baby. You're both young, you can abort it. My wife and I both said, actually, no, we're Catholics and we're not going to abort. We want to go ahead with this pregnancy. And the baby obviously was about to be born, so we went to the hospital and my wife gave birth. Sadly, a month later, my son passed away. We tried again, and then we found that my wife is pregnant again with a baby boy. And then we would see every fortnight the same doctor. And they assured us for a good 9 months that this baby is healthy, we're gonna have this baby, and everything is fine. My wife started to have contractions, and then she didn't feel the baby moving as much. So we went to the doctors. They said, no, it's okay, you're just being paranoid. Go back home, you will have this baby, and come back. And then we went to the doctors, the hospital, the due date, and they were doing the ultra scan. And they said, the baby's dead. It was pretty hard again, obviously, losing 2 sons. It wasn't that easy. And then we took a break for a couple of years from children. And then I turned to my wife and I said, let's try again. The world isn't going to stop for anyone. God gives and God takes. And then, thanks be to God, we have a beautiful baby girl. And we named her Maryam, after our mother Mary. And then we tried again, and then we had another baby by the name of Rosary. And then slowly, I started to hear a whisper from God in my evening prayers. Mahir, what do you think of the priesthood? And I told my wife, I said, Russia, I go, this is what's happening. And I go, I think God is calling me into the priesthood. She looked at me, she cried, she goes, no. On that night, I prayed to God. I said, Lord, I go, I know that you called me to the priesthood. I go, I'm saying yes. I go, I'm doing my part. She doesn't want to listen to me. If you want me to be a priest, you have to convince her. So we didn't speak about the priesthood for a while. And then a couple of months later, we were sitting in the car and we were driving back home. And my wife said to me, she goes, Mahir, she goes, I'm feeling something happening in my life. She goes, I don't know what it is. She goes, but there's this sense of peace God has given me. This sense of love God has given me. And she goes, you know what? Let's go ahead with the priesthood. And I laughed and I said, you know what? She said, what is it? I go, to be honest with you, I told God to convince you, to tell you if this is truly what He wants me to do, that He will tell you. She goes, and she started laughing. And she goes, you know what? She goes, let's go ahead with it. I told the bishop that we both agreed to it. Obviously, he had to come see my wife and see if this is actually what she wants to do. She has to sign a paper saying, I do allow my husband to be a priest. There's a lot of rules between that happens with that. She was very supportive, very happy. And on the 14th of April, I got ordained as a Chaldean Catholic priest. And I've loved it ever since, and I love it. So as a Chaldean Catholic priest, there's some requirements you have to meet in order to become a priest. The first requirement obviously would be that the bishop is seeking for you to be a priest. And then if the bishop is happy and the parish priest is happy, then they would ask me, Mahir, what do you think of the priesthood, like they did in my life? The second step would be to ask your wife, obviously, and you'd have to get a written permission from your wife that she's happy for the priesthood to keep going. You'd have to have a Bachelor of Theology. So obviously before I became a priest, before I even thought about anything about the priesthood, I was already studying theology. So I was already thirsty for God. So I studied theology and philosophy. And other requirements are more personal requirements. So you'd have to have a good reputation with the community, that the community actually is in favor of it. Once I accept, my wife accepts, the bishop is happy, the priest is happy, they would throw the announcement out there. If there's no complaints, if people are saying, that's fine, we're happy with Mahir to go ahead, and then they will put an official statement saying that we're thinking of ordaining Mahir to the priesthood. Obviously, you have to become a deacon first, so they ordain me as a deacon, and then after that, if they're happy with it, then they would give you a day for the ordination for the priesthood. The first thing the bishop told me when we first met up with him, he said, how can we balance your life with the church? Because you don't want to sacrifice your family for the community or sacrifice the community for your family. So it's a balance. How do I balance my family, and how do I balance the community? And God has given me that understanding how to balance it, especially obviously to have a very supportive wife. So before I got into the priesthood, obviously I was a youth group leader. I led the youth for a good 15 years because I loved them. I truly found my motivation, my encouragement, my power through the young people. Every time I saw someone coming to Christ, someone who wanted to know about God, I just loved it and I was thirsty for that. And I remember the bishop told me before I was ordained, he goes, Mahir, I want you to be a priest for young people. He goes, your mission is young people. He goes, foster them. All right. He goes, I know you've been doing it for the past 15 years. He goes, I don't want you to change. He goes, continue doing what you're doing. Now you have the sacraments with you. Now you've got God with you. Now you've got the Eucharist. Now you've got the reconciliation. Now you've got all these powerful tools you can use for the young people. One beautiful thing about young people is before I was chasing them, right? Now they slowly started to chase me. So it made my life a bit easier that they're coming to me. And one thing that I've done in this church is I've given them a voice. And they were thirsty for that. Someone to understand them, someone to feel their pain. What does it mean to be a Chaldean in Australia? What does it mean that I have my identity as an Australian Chaldean? Do I take my whole traditions from Iraq, or do I lose some? Do I pick up some from here? So we've given them a voice in this church to be who they are. It's become amazing, and they've become empowered, because my mission as a Chaldean Catholic priest is to empower the young people to be who they want to be as an authentic Christian in their life. One thing the young people want is authenticity, right? If they see an authentic priest, they want that. Because young people copy other people, right? They have idols, they have celebrities who they copy, and they are contagious with young people who are passionate about their faith. And when you're passionate about the faith, it actually spills into them also, and they start to grasp that idea, and they start to want more of it. What does Mahir have that I don't have? And why does he have this certain compassion and passion towards his faith in God, that he's willing to lay down his life for God, that I don't have? And so they become curious. And then through that, they become evangelizers. They become to understand, what does it mean to be a Catholic? Young people here love their faith. They just need someone to understand them, someone to foster them, and to walk beside them, to journey with them. They're not numbers, they're people. And before we are called to evangelize and call others into the faith, we need to see them as human beings, to love them as they are, and then God will do the work. We're called to plant the seed and then let God do the rest. And now we have an amazing young people. We take them out to pilgrimages, so we've taken them out to Israel. We're actually planning another one next year. We're planning to go to Iraq and then Israel to connect with their identity, connect with their people, to see the sites where we were persecuted, where we lived as in the villages, and to go to the Holy Land. And I have no doubt it'll be a beautiful moment to spend with the young people. So we do a lot of things with young people. We have social activities, we have sports activities. We bring guest speakers from overseas. We do have social events. Every Saturday after a youth group, we go to dinner. And that's our encounter with the new people that come in, to foster the relationship with them. With that, when you build young people in the church, what happens usually is they take that outside the world also. And then you start to see young people go into sports activities together. They play soccer together, they play footy together, they go to cinemas together, because you foster what you build it here, and now their mission is to take it to the outside world. I want to say I'm good at soccer, but I'm not usually as good. I usually butcher them sometimes when we play. But the boys are pretty good at soccer, and we usually do have a lot of fun events. And I hope that we can see an event with the boys playing soccer and how we go about that. Some people, especially young people, ask me, Mahir, how do you have this passion towards God? What do you do? What is your secret? And I said, there's no secret. I go, it's purely letting God work through you. And especially young people, I usually advise them to discern, what is God really telling you? I mean, because the Holy Spirit is always calling us for something. And I think most of the times what we do is we're talking to God, but we're not listening to God. We don't give God that time where He responds back to us. One thing as a priest that we should show others is that we truly love the priesthood, that we are truly happy, that we are joyful. Once young people see that this young person, this priest is happy, he's joyful, I want that. But if we're always showing them that we're tired, or if we're showing them that we're miserable, that we're angry, that we've had enough, that's not going to encourage young people to come to the faith. And I give you my word, that you can be the worst person, you can be a sinful person, but if you give your life to God, God will work through that. I wasn't always an angel, I wasn't always a saint. God always usually calls the most wretched, the most sinful, and He does that, and He does that pretty well. So if you have a sense of love towards the church, a sense of love towards helping others, I think God is probably calling you for something greater. And take it to God and just ask Him, say, God, are you calling me for something other than marriage? Or are you calling me for marriage? Are you calling me to be a priest or a nun or religious? And then sit with that and then allow Him to respond. Sometimes you'll be surprised what He says to you.
Lord and giver of life, raise up men filled with your power and with great missionary zeal. so that all who dwell in darkness may come to live in the light of Christ. Amen.